Hey, how you doing today?
Good, man. Doing good.
Good. Came to a realization last week when we were talking that I was probably going to need a project manager, and I've never hired one before. I have
Ah.
no idea what I'm looking for. And we were talking about one of my guys, Anthony,
hmm
that he might be a fit for the role, but at the same time, what am I
Oh, I love
hiring on?
this. I love
Right?
this. Okay.
So
So
this is the time to help me get through this, and everybody else who's never hired a PM before.
even the people who have, okay. So let me really kind of drive this one home. The majority of clients that I talk to, which is regularly, have a problem with their project manager. And one of the first questions I ask is, what is the expectations that you've set, and what's the role that you want them to do specifically? That usually leads to them, in some cases, pulling out a written job description and being like, here's what I want them to do. I'm like, yes, but how have you trained those things? Show me when was the last time we went over that role description and you understood and had systems in place that made him successful using him or her. Okay.
Interesting.
First problem, first major problem, okay, is that we model our role off of a person, okay, rather than taking a role and then matching a person to that role. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So, like, what, for example, Anthony may have a lot of. It's just like hiring a salesperson that's never done sales before. In some cases, unless you have a very strong onboarding, you have a very strong way to teach them how to be successful in that. You have to understand that you're taking a huge risk of both losing the person, right? So somebody that may have been a good site foreman, right now moves into a project manager's role with no support and no training. All right. And then quickly goes back to the place where they were validated, which was on site. And most cases, which we see over and over again, is they take somebody from the field, they anoint them and make them project manager, and then they stick them in a truck driving around looking at job sites all day with no project management actual like requirements. So let's get really clear on what I see as a project manager and what other people may view as it. So a construction manager, first thing, project planning, start to finish. They
Right.
oversee the entire project. Okay. Resource management, you know, whatever's going out to job sites, POs, ordering material, ordering equipment.
Tools. Yep.
Yep,
Yep. Yep.
100%. Risk management. This is a big one. As a contractor, being a specialty contractor, builder, whoever, the first role of the owner and then passed on to the project manager is risk management. Our job is one of the most important jobs we hold is managing the exposure we have to things not working out, the exposure we have to not making money. If you don't see yourself in that role as an owner yet, okay, you're probably not ready for a project manager.
Hmm.
Start assessing your risk. Start actively identifying, because we as contractors love to put ourselves in dangerous and vulnerable positions. This is what will have to stop, because you can no longer run your business that way, especially with a project manager in place. Okay. So again, big important process is another one is quality control. Okay. Again, quality control, it has to become more systemized when you remove yourself from that operation. Okay.
Right.
Communication, again, this is one of the biggest things I see day in and day out is owners that could not give up control. They micromanaged and then held all the communication. So managed, they couldn't hand off from sales to production to their PM. All right. They stay in the process too long. All right. And they end up actually causing themselves so much grief and undermining their new project manager. Okay. Big time. So communication, progress monitoring. Okay. So again, are they able and capable of actually providing reports? You know, this is a very much an administrative, thinking position in my humble point of view. All right. And if you're going to, bring somebody in, you best have a system, because that also plays into cost controls, into your management accounting systems, all of it. Okay. So documentation, huge. Filling out forms, accident reports, all those things that go on site on the day-to-day basis that you may not be doing now. This is something that you're going to train somebody to do in the future, so that your business has structure and we have visibility without having to be there and micromanage.
Well, I was going to bring that up because, to be honest, I'm not even sure I'm good at doing that myself. So how the hell am I
Well,
supposed to, right?
we're gonna get to that point in a second, when you
Yeah.
know you need a project manager, because here's what I see. Again, just share my observations and my own trauma and mistakes, is we tend to hire people that look like us and sound like us and that maybe have the same personality, and that's a mistake. Okay. The reason that's a mistake, and I'll give you the best example I can. The project manager I have in my business, I don't necessarily get along with. Don't like him that much. All right. And that's okay. He's better at doing something than I am. And his brain works differently than mine. You notice the word manager, not leader,
Makes sense. Yeah.
not CEO. Okay. They're managers, meaning that when we give them a process or a procedure to follow, they're going to stick to that. And you aren't going to like that because, again, you probably haven't stuck to your own,
There's a lot of gray
you'll break,
area.
you'll break rules. So
Yeah.
again, most owners tend to be more, entrepreneurial and they're resistant to a lot of structure and a lot of regiment. Okay. And that's what's lacking in their business. That's the problem they're actually having. They're the problem on their job sites.
That's
If you have
interesting.
out of control, chaotic job sites, don't hire your brother. That's just like you. Okay.
Yeah.
That's not going to help the situation. And in fact, it's going to, make it worse. Okay. So you need to know the profile of the person that fits this role. All right. And that's a personality profile. In other words, people that play in this role get energy from having things go exactly the way they've been trained, and like they're very systematic. Everything stays in order. Everything is the same thing, same cereal for breakfast, same they're
Right.
very much creatures of habit. What they don't like is change. Okay, so think about that with your systems and your processes. If you're a business that's constantly changing things up, you're going to lose them right away. Okay, we have to really think about it before we bring the person into the position and creating an environment where if he does all of these things every day, he's going to go home at the end of the day. Everyone's going to be happy. All right. But we can't introduce a ton of, big changes. Okay. That's just the personality that I've been successful with. Now, again, it could be argued. There's no one way to kind of identify that, but the most successful, and we've hired lots of project managers for companies and helped to implement them with a high degree of success in our operations program. Is they fit like a defender profile. Okay. Now this is like your accountant or bookkeeper. They're not exciting people. All right. They're risk managers. They're not going to take huge risks. Okay. They're going to be safety concerned. They're going to be slower than you. Okay. Because they're thinking methodically. They're thinking steps ahead.
Interesting.
They're afraid to make mistakes. Like these are the kind of characteristics that we need. Now, again, if you're expecting them to have a maverick, approach to things, you're going to increase your risk. Right. So don't hire them. All right. Don't necessarily hire someone because they're older into the role. I see this all the time as well. We've in fact just went through a very painful experience where we had to, again, identify some older, characters that were in the company. And the first thing I was able to do is get rid of their two top project managers who were older and resistant to using technology. All right. Again, very experienced, but that's not going to serve the company moving forward. And it's also, again, that mix between, Gen Xer and baby boomer to the younger generation creates conflict. The reality is we can do a lot more and cover a lot more ground with technology. And there isn't, again, if somebody's not willing to adapt to your systems, your processes, your procedures, so a digital form, and they insist on using a written form, that doesn't work. It's oil and water. Don't even allow it. Don't consider it. Just move away. Okay. The big one is problem solving. So again, when we get to technology, I can get by with a hell of a lot less skilled project manager this day. Okay. Especially when you implement AI and you implement proper systems. So you can take an average, somebody in a defender profile, even maybe inexperienced, and now pair them with a really solid knowledge base and an AI that can use contracts and read contracts, understand languages, and all of a sudden now we have an all-star, right? Understanding their cost codes, things like that, really, it takes it to the next level. The last thing I'm going to say is, and people completely, blow this all the time, is project closeout. I mean,
what's that, Jay?
Right? So
I've never heard the term.
So I always look at project closeout is, the way that we've ended a project always needs to result in, did we win? Yes or no, black or white, right?
Okay.
We won profitably. We won with the customer satisfaction. There's key indicator points. Okay. And if we lost, all right, there needs to be a lessons learned plan in place. Okay. Somebody needs to lead that conversation. Someone needs to be accountable for that. All right. So that the mistake doesn't happen again. And here's the connection. if you make a mistake estimating, you underprice something. Okay. If you don't have somebody that's going to hold, the project closeout, the chances of that mistake being repeated are exponential.
Right.
Now multiply that, and that could put a business out of business very quickly. Okay. So monitoring those things, having a scorecard, holding people accountable to those things. Most entrepreneurial, visionary leaders, all right, the people that, have the courage to start a
Yeah.
business, don't possess those skills as much as they should. Okay. Now they get the idea of it. And the best way I can explain it in kind of layman's terms is like, you could probably design the perfect process and like see the vision and understand the pieces, how they would all go together, and like have the willingness to like put it in place. All right. But you're not going to be the one that actually runs it. You would
Yeah.
lose all of your attention. You would be miserable running your own procedure.
Dude, you're making me question how the hell I've gotten by this long.
Well, but again, many people do it, and I hate to say it, like I got by for years with the dopamine rush, with the risk I was taking. I was addicted to it.
You're right,
Right?
right.
The thrill, the ups and downs, the like all of that stuff kept me like 6 gear pinned all the time, and I wasn't really doing anything well. I was doing it average at best, below average in most situations. If you put me in a hard contract with all the things that I accepted onto my plate, I mean, I was taking enormous risk. I'm surprised the jobs that I got through and like the outcomes that I had that weren't way worse. But had I had a project manager, I would have saved a lifetime of 18, 20-hour days. All right. I would have also, allowed my business to grow, to a place where I didn't have to be in the operations of it. I would have
Mhm.
actually done a better job on sales. I would have recognized things that were affecting the business from moving forward. I would have made more money. All right. All of these things come from this place of being unaware. Okay. So the fact that most of us don't actually know what a project manager does, all right, specifically, like what problems do they solve? What is the personality? Where do we find them? Like all those things have probably prevented you from really considering it as a solution to what your problem is, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
again, now that we kind of got a big picture of what it is, let's talk really briefly about hiring them, because I think our audience, a lot of us are curious on, hiring this role. And if I had to be, intentional here, I would say you hire an in-house admin first, okay, in the evolution of a contractor. All right. Second thing that we need to hire is a key role, project manager or a variation superintendent,
Right.
somebody that's going to maybe not be in the office, but a superintendent can play a lot of these similar things, foreman, whatever one you want to put on it, but know that that's not a full-fledged project manager.
Yeah.
And
You see that in a lot of
a
companies.
lot, yeah.
Yeah.
So that it's a hybrid, right?
Yeah.
So that can work out very well depending on what kind of projects you're running. Usually in construction companies, anything that has multiple trades, stuff like that, you're going to have a superintendent with your project manager, right? And then they manage the office side. The negotiation side is kind of the higher end stuff.
Right. Right.
And then they're delegating that down, through the channels. In a single trade contractor, a lot of times I see most of the project management stuff getting more systemized, to the point where you have maybe a GM, all right, and then superintendent down.
Got
Right.
it. And that makes sense.
Yeah. So again, don't get and there's a million different ways to, well, not a million. There's multiple ways to set this position up. The biggest thing is for any company out there, if I can give you any advice, is design the role to solve the problems that you have specifically, okay, that are stopping you from moving forward. So if you need, somebody just to supervise crews, if you like, design that role before you ever think about the person. Okay.
Yeah, I've never thought about designing the
Right.
role, right? I mean, you think project manager, there's programs for that in school. People come out
Mm-hmm.
learning how to be a project
But
manager.
they're
What
but
does that
they're
mean,
yeah, so
right?
so think of someone going to school though, and they're being trained for a corporate big time $100 million builder. How's that apply to a small, builder? How do they fit into their systems? They don't.
I don't know. Yeah, they
Right.
don't. No.
So again, here's the big gap is that there is like a corporate builder, like a big infrastructure builder, for
Yeah.
example. Okay. They're going to train a PM completely different than somebody that's a custom home builder. All
Yeah,
right.
it makes sense. Right. For
So
sure.
a lot of custom home builders hit a ceiling at a certain point, because it comes down to production issues, and they're not able to actually identify what core systems and processes and stuff they need this person to perform. So then what happens is, because it is a higher level executive role, in my opinion, all right, is that they hire someone they think can do some of the tasks.
Hmm.
So they become task based versus objective based. Right. So I want to give an objective. Our objective is to maintain a 25-30% margin on the project, have no safety infractions, have, customer satisfaction of 75% or 75, sorry, 90% or
Sure.
higher. Right. We
Yeah.
want to have, the project done in a certain amount of days. That's in the objective. Right. Or what most guys do, because I haven't designed my role, I don't know specifically how he would do that, and I don't have plans and controls and stuff in place.
Right.
All
Right.
right. Is that I'm going to say, hey, can you do this? And then you make them into gophers. You make them into, basically an extension of you where you have to think for them, and game over. Right. Then we
Yeah,
hire
that's what I see
somebody.
a lot of the times. No, no, it resonates with me because I
Right.
see that a lot of times. I've experienced it with other jobs.
Yeah, and again, good project managers are difficult to find. They're far easier to manufacture. Okay, so the reflection of this is when you work on really good systems and processes and forms and stuff inside your business, and you have a well thought out plan on how to produce a job systematically, which reduces your risks, reduces your variables, and you've set it up in an environment in a way that the job can be ran relatively easy from somebody that's maybe less experienced than you,
Yeah.
and you can get by with someone very average. Okay. Now, vice versa, if you are bringing them into an environment where none of that stuff's established, none of that stuff is there, you're going to require somebody that is essentially an all-star, right? Somebody that's really adaptable, and, like, again, this person is not and even if they do get things balanced, they'll tend to leave on top of that, right? Because they're going to be motivated the same way you are, right?
Yeah,
So
good point. Which is devastating for a business, and I think that resonates a little bit more with most of like a lot more of
yeah,
the contractors in this group.
so again, when we hire properly, we think of things like, when you hire your accountant, your bookkeeper, they tend to be in this defender type of profile from the 16
Right.
personalities. Let's just think of that's the guy that's been at the same company for 16 years, been passed up for all these, raises and everything else. Like, they generally are the workhorses, but they're the ones that don't get a lot of recognition. They're the steady eddies. They're the steady guys. Okay.
Right.
Think about that when you're considering these positions. All right. That's more important. And, like, the leadership side of it is less important. I mean, it's still a huge factor. Don't get me wrong, but that can be, like, it's a management role, right? And we have to understand what makes a good manager versus what makes a good leader. Okay.
Right. Right.
Can this person, think on their own? Yes, they can, right? But the expectation is that they're running a system we built where it's, we've already got a predictable result, right? We already know if you do A plus B, it equals C. That's when it becomes most stable, and that's when you can actually grow on top of that. The mistake would be is to put somebody in there that's maybe high caliber, like, wants to be the owner of the business. And I see that a lot, where their profile is more commander. They, because they're able to take control, because they're able to manage. But the problem with them is they have a very short shelf life, and that destabilizes companies when they leave.
I never thought of it that way because, like, when we're
Mm.
talking about a project manager, my mind directly goes to, okay, who can I find that thinks like me, that could do
That's
my
right.
job? But there's an issue with handing trust over, or handing, like, being able to let go of your task. But the way you're putting it is that if you have the systems in place, it's not even a trust thing,
It's
right?
not a trust thing, and it
Yeah.
allows you to not micromanage. Okay. So again, we know the characteristics of a really high caliber salesperson. They're not the most organized, right? They're messy. They're good at talking to people, right?
Yep.
There's
Yep.
qualities that they have. They're good at relating and connecting with people. Okay. Um, and again, the reason why 90% of the problems from sales to production happen is because of that, right? The salesperson's not overly organized, not detailed. Like, they're really about pushing and grinding and, like, finesse, right? They're trying to push work forward. They have a totally different set of objectives. Whereas you need that balance or that anchor All right, that would be your project manager. So somebody that's going to take the time to go through plans, make sure all the details are straight. They're not going to start doing things just, out of
Just the top of their head and
yeah,
just trying to
reaction.
figure
They're
things out
not
on their
gonna.
own. Yeah,
Yeah, they're not that type. Now, some businesses, again, if you're very new and you're trying to grow rapidly, like I've seen it. I've seen it. We've seen even big companies start to kind of take on these personality profiles, and they get out of control very quickly, right?
it can be very damaging because they could damage your
Hugely.
relationships with your staff, your relationships with your customers, relationships with suppliers, like
And the expectations are hard to maintain. Okay, so
for
again,
sure.
if somebody's expecting something more, all right, that starts the first sort of domino that I've seen, and again, I've had it occur. So like, I've experienced it myself and tried it many times. Again, good example is using a family member that thinks like you. Like I've done that,
Right,
and
right,
that's just they're basically they would make the same decisions you would make, but are those decisions you're making right for the company?
right,
Probably not. Are the
right,
systems that you've put in place, maybe you can figure them out, but they're not very efficient, and they probably change a lot, right? So again, think about maybe making this role a very systematic one, right? So again, when we talk about form and functions and like SOPs, like the better you can make it a very boring role, I'm gonna say for me and my like my personality type, like I can, we've got it really well designed. Like every day has, a set amount of task expectations. A manager will come in and love that, right? They they get energy from that, being able to do the same things over and over again. All right. And, they get energy from, being able to do that very well and being able to take the small variations, but they don't get energy. The opposite is when they're in environments that are constantly changing and the system's changing or there's no system, they feel
yeah.
out of control and they burn out like really quickly.
It's crazy that I'm not even qualified to be a project manager in my own
Nor am
company.
I. Nor am I. So again, one of the hardest pills I ever had to swallow in my business was realizing that, my operations manager is probably 10 times the capability and skills of me. And for a while, my ego got in the way and it caused me to clash with that person and, really build up some resentment towards them when really when I reflected on it, it was like, okay, so he can do something much better than I can. And I like my brain doesn't work like that. What frustrated me was that if I gave him an SOP or a process 4 years ago, he's still doing it. He's not trying to make it more efficient. He's not trying to like he's following exactly the way I trained him, right? Even though things have changed around, like using that, right? So I would get frustrated with that, not realizing the gift that I had in front of me,
Right.
right? Like again, now put that in perspective. If you're trying to build a business with structure and balance and controls where you have predictable profits, you have predictable outcomes, and you have, really competent people that are able to, perform, a complicated thing, basically, all right, without your, constant interventions or constant, being there, well, then how do you do that
Mhm.
without those kind of things, without that type of person? And really, it's the reflection part, right? If I were happy doing the exact same thing every single day, all right, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't own a business,
No, and that's a good point. And that is a
right?
good point.
So you need
I'm
people like that.
no, you do. I'm curious that anybody like in our group that has experience with this. I'm curious to know. Like, do you agree with what Jay's saying? I don't have the qualifications really to like this. I'm hearing this for the first time. So please put your comments below.
Yep. One last thing. Again, we've been told. So, what's your point or what's your plug? I think I had a client tell me that last week. Is that, hey, I love the content, but like it's how do I solve it? So I want to make again give everybody a suggestion. One is we have operations AI coming up for companies that don't have the systems yet in place that would allow somebody to come in and be successful in their operation. Um, is a really good opportunity for you to get exposed to that. So again, procedures, the boring stuff, right? But necessary, policies, all that stuff, how that really, goes to form, management in a business. We're going to be sharing that. Again, you can come Thursdays for free, giving you lots of free resources and stuff to help support this, this process. And then for anybody that's looking to really take this to the next level, we do offer a done for you where I will hire you a project manager. I will train them. I will build the policies and procedures for you on your behalf. All right. And then bring them to KPI for you. And usually it takes about 90 days. We're very good at it. I've hired hundreds of them for myself and others. And again, if you're looking to avoid the pain of learning it yourself, that's a good option for you. So just reach out to us, and we can certainly help you there.
I love it, and we'll start making a point of offering solutions at the end of each each live. Jay, have yourself a good day. We'll see you again next week.
All right.